Okay, folks, good evening and welcome to the first of the 2024 Exeter City Supporters Trust Fans Forum. As you can see, we've got 4 exciting, interesting guests to talk to and for you to listen to tonight. And then there's Marcus, Gary, Millie and Ben as well. Format of the evening, these lads up here will talk about the football. We'll do that for about 45 minutes, 60 minutes. There'll be a break for 15 minutes. And then Jeremy, Tippett and Joe Gorman will come up on stage and talk through the business plan for the next 12 months. Seen the presentation and it's very exciting and very ambitious, which is good to see. So there's no pressure. We'll be taking questions at the end of Marcus's presentation to Marcus and to Gary. There's some have come through which we'll make sure will get asked if they haven't been covered in the presentation. Then we'll go to the good-looking gentleman on my right and just see how they're settling into Exeter. Remember we are on YouTube, so if you don't want to be filmed, please be aware of that. And enjoy the evening. Marcus, over to you, sir.
Brilliant, thank you. Is that on? Can you hear me? Brilliant. So I'm going to talk about the January transfer window just gone and share some insights into how we went about it, how our process leading into the window, how the window went, and some insights into some of the obstacles we come up against. I'll share what the rest of League One did as well in January, and show you where we sit amongst that, and share any trends that came up from this window specifically in League One. And then I'll give you a little insight into what we're going to do in future windows, or some areas that we're going to use to give us an edge in the windows to kind of tackle some of the obstacles that I talk about. I'll try and keep it to 10-15 minutes so that there's plenty of time for questions. So the first point is just to touch on the timeline and the plan. So you'll probably hear every manager talk about as soon as one window finishes, the next window starts. And that's absolutely true in terms of when you become proactive. So as soon as we're all done with the summer window, we're looking at the January window, we're looking at what do we need and what do we want, what we'd like to do. And that's a discussion that we'll have with Gary. So once we have an idea of the positions we're after, we can then look to populate that. So that will probably happen around the end of October, beginning of November will be the first time we probably put together a list to the management and the coaches, which are players made up from our scouting, our data, our contacts, what we've done previous windows. And then we'll normally meet on a weekly basis from that point. That will be initially looking at narrowing down that list, so taking names off that list that don't need to be on there, adding names that do. And of course, because it's January, as we go through the season, it fluctuates as we're in season. So some players become injured, out of form, whatever it may be. So our demands may change. It's probably as that list starts to finalise, we start to then talk to the agents end of November, beginning of December to kind of gather information on are they affordable and available, which is probably a big thing for January. And quite a difficult thing, it turns out, to figure out if they're affordable. And then we'll start to then be quite proactive in December in terms of talking to the agents and the clubs and putting our offers forward to try and get the players in the building. So the question would be is, why weren't Millie and Ben in the window on the 1st of January? So we've come across a lot of obstacles in January. The first one being it's a short window, so you've got 4 weeks, and it's in season. So Gary and the coaching staff are prepping for games, debriefing games, and as I mentioned before, injuries happen, things can fluctuate and change in January. So with it being in season makes it a lot more difficult than it would do in the summer when there's a lot more time and focus on the window. With it being in season, it brings one big obstacle to us, which is everybody or majority of players are under contract, so they're all tied to a club. Which makes things difficult because it gives us another layer. Apologies. It gives us another layer to get through before we can talk to the players. So we have to get the clubs to agree to a deal to allow us to talk to the players and bring them into the club. And that's not just as simple as one person saying yes. There's a lot of people that need to say yes to our offer. So as a first team manager, and he'll be thinking about how that impacts his team in the short term and the rest of the season. Heads of recruitment, directors of football, trying to think about what are the alternatives if we let this player leave, where can we reinvest money? A club, a chairman thinking about longer term strategy, how does it impact us as a club, moving that player on, what can we invest that money in? So it's highlighted there, it's a big decision, and we have to respect that. It is a big decision for not just the players, but for the club as well to have that impact in season and affect what they do in the future. which means ultimately we struggle, or we find it very hard we can't force people to say yes. The biggest thing you can do is make it hard for them to say no, and that normally comes with finances and putting an offer in front of people that says we have to really think about that and we can't say no to that. And this is probably the obstacle that we fall down at most in January, is getting past the club. So we can't talk to a player without permission from the club, and that normally comes with them accepting an offer. So that layer makes it quite difficult for us. The other one is we're not the only ones, so it's common knowledge or practice that if we get an offer accepted, for example, by a club, every other club that's after the same position is now notified this is what gets accepted. So they're told this was accepted by Exeter, so now they can match that offer and be in for the player. So suddenly it's not just us after the player, there's 3, 4, 5 extra teams that are now after the player, as we experience in a summer window anyway. And it gets quite reactive because of that, because you're waiting for people to say yes and make decisions that we can't force them to make. It means those decisions happen quite late. So the chaos of January comes from a lot of stuff happens at the back end of the window because people do make their decisions, they do say yes, but that then means there's 6 or 7 clubs that have been told no. And then guess what, if you're after a certain profile of player, the next one available, of those 7 that got told no, 4 or 5 of those also go onto that player. So you get this very quick chain reaction that happens towards the back end of the window, which makes it very competitive. And that's where our preparation's key. So I think the recruitment department's been going for about 4 or 5 years. So within that, it means we're constantly collecting data on players. We're constantly scouting and getting information. We're constantly keeping our contacts up to date. So it's really important that when an opportunity comes up, a player does become available, maybe someone signs someone falls down the pecking order, they're available, we're able to make really quick decisions, but also good decisions because we've got all this data available to us to be able to make that decision. And that's really important for January, to be able to take those opportunities, especially late on. So this is what happened in League One. This is a table of the ins and outs for every team. You'll see Charlton at the top there with 9 in, Reading at the bottom with 1. I know there's been a few free agents signed recently as well, so this may have changed, but generally speaking, you're loving this, aren't you? So we're 2 out and 5 in. I've not included Charlie Cummins, and that as a 21, so that gives us kind of a +3 to our squad. I think Portsmouth were the only one with +4, and I think I'm right in saying there's some really bad long-term injuries in the middle of January, which would have dictated that. But generally speaking, you normally see teams with 4 out and 4 in. That's fairly common for a January. And as I kind of just touched on there, most deals were announced in the last 3 or 4 days of the window, and a huge chunk announced on deadline day. Yeah, announced, not necessarily done on deadline day, but back end of the window, with that chain effect spoken about. There was less movement in this January window compared to the last January window. Not by too much, but it was less, and it leaned more towards loans and permanents, and that's quite common. It's always quite common to do more loans than permanents in January, but it did lean even more so to loans. And then that last one there was always a hot topic, which is strikers. Always in demand, always the most valuable player. I think we played Derby on Tuesday, had James Collins up front, who was their only currently fit striker in their squad. If you watch Paul Warren's interview after the deadline, you'll hear him talk about how they couldn't get a striker in, they failed to get a striker in. So they were one of about 4 or 5 clubs in this window that needed to sign a striker, and they didn't sign a striker. So these problems I talk about, they're not just our problems, and they're not just problems of Little Exeter City, it's Derby County as well. But certainly in recent windows, that supply and demand of strikers has been quite heavily skewed for numerous different reasons that we can speculate on. But with me saying we've had these issues for the last couple of seasons, it makes sense for us to think about what are we going to do to tackle that? What can we do to get an edge? And the first one on there is longer contracts. The work that Joe is doing at the club enables us to have a lot more financial clarity on what our future budgets look like going forward, which gives myself and Gary a bit more clarity on giving out longer contracts or extending contracts as we're going through now, so that we have that continuity of not always having a churn in our squad. We've got a bit more consistency, which is absolutely vital to any kind of success. The next one, which I quite like, is alternative markets. So with the work permit rules for players relaxing, it means we can now shop outside of the UK. So that's a really exciting one where now we haven't got to shop on the same player, where I talk about looking at profiles and moving to another player. We all shop in the same market, it's the same clubs after the same players, and there's that competition. If we can broaden our horizons, we can eliminate some of that competition. And the last one, absolutely vital and really important part of our club, is our academy. So the academy is on its journey to potentially becoming a Category 2 academy. That will bring better players and a larger quality of players that are able to play at a high level. Now, it's a much longer term project, but it's really important that we have that supply so we haven't always got to dip in and change into the markets. And yeah, apologies if I've waffled on or rushed through stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into transfer windows, specifically January, and how it went for us in this window.
Marcus, can I just ask a couple and then we'll put it to the floor. Marcus, can I just ask you to pass the microphone to Ali and Ben? Just their experience, because a lot of people talk about you, and do they actually consult with you in this process? You know, how are you asked, how are you told that X club wants you, and what happens from your point of view?
So from my point of view, I was up in Ross County this window. I was playing week in, week out there in the team. But I'm from down here. I was looking to try and get back down here. I sort of told the club up there that that was the case. I had quite a good relationship with the manager anyway, so I was quite open with him. And then you sort of get clearance to be able to speak to the club. So I was given permission to speak to Exeter, and then it sort of rolls on from there. Your agent gets involved, and your agent starts speaking terms, etc., with Marcus. And then when you get close, it's more just trying to get it over the line in terms of like bids being accepted, and they didn't want me to leave. So it was one of those where I had to sort of get my point across more to be able to try and leave. And you got Exeter trying to bid a bit more and help Ross County out that way to try and like persuade them to let you leave. And it's sort of just meeting in the middle. And as Marcus said, you can see why it takes so long, and it gets towards like the very end of windows because everyone's sort of not playing games, but you're sort of like trying to figure each other out. And I think that's sort of why it spirals and goes on to the end of the window. If it could have been done 1st of January, it would have been miles better for both parties, but it's one of those where it takes a bit of time.
So is it a bit like a game of chess? You just
Yeah, from what I obviously don't hear too much of the conversations behind closed doors. And I don't know, it might be.
Do you want to know those conversations?
Probably because I was panicking, thinking I was not going to get done. But my end, I was just hoping it would get done, and sort of your agent takes care of most things my end, and obviously Marcus does from the club.
Yeah. Millie, was it a similar experience for you?
Hello, guys. Yeah, definitely it was a similar experience. I feel like my deal got done later on in the month, and like you said, sometimes you kind of worry and you're not sure whether the deal will go through or not, but
you're here.
I'm here.
And you're pleased to be here?
I'm very happy.
Good. I'll give you that back. Thank you. So Marcus, if you could just go back to summer 23, the summer window, lots of ins and outs. How was that for you in terms of you get an offer for a striker, Sam? What's the process then of accepting it, not accepting it? How do we replace him? What goes through you and the gaffer's minds of how that happens?
Yeah, I think I could probably add a bit of context or a bit of backstory, or take us on a little journey where if we go back 2 years this time, I think it was, so in our promotion season to League 2 is around now, we get a feeling for we might get promoted to League 1, this would be good. As soon as that happens, I do a lot of research into what happens in League 1. So I remember putting together a document that looked at about 6 or 7 seasons worth of data of League 2 teams that get promoted into League 1. And I look at what happened to those teams over 3 or 4 years, which ones stay in the league, which ones stay and do well, which ones get relegated, and try to highlight certain areas that what's the difference, what happens. I think there were 2 kind of points that came out to that. The first one was teams that keep their promoted team together in their first season usually finish quite comfortably in League 1. That was a really important point. And we were at a point that season where a lot of our players were under contract in that kind of 2-year cycle that we tend to go through. So that was a pretty good place to be in. And the second one was how important the second window in League 1 is, so that summer window. It's an absolute pivotal point in deciding what the next couple of seasons look like for those clubs. Some get relegated straight away, some it can be quite difficult. So that window was immediately highlighted as being really important. And the reason I'm kind of saying that is based on what you've seen from January and that kind of context to it. you can see it's quite a difficult window coming up. I think we did 14 signings that window, which I think's the most I've ever done since I've been involved. There's loads of other things that come into it in terms of finances as well and budgets. You've got a lot of League Two players that probably earning League Two wages in League One that then leave and go on to bigger and better things, and you've got to replace them with League One players and League One wages with a similar budget. So that budget gets eaten up really quickly. It's a really, really challenging window. And with Sam, I remember we received numerous bids for Sam. So we knew that Jay was going to go back. We knew that we were very likely to lose Sam. So we were after a striker, and the talks for them were from day dot, and the rejection was always there. So we were planning on getting 2 in from the start of that window. So, and then probably in context of what you've just seen there, it's incredibly hard to make people say yes. So it goes right to the wire. We received offers for Sam all the way throughout the window. I think the 2 offers we accepted were offers that made it very hard for us to say no, in terms of the finances that were involved. We knew we were very close to one at the time of him leaving as well. In an ideal world, we had 2, but we couldn't quite get 2 in the window, which made it challenging.
So for this summer window coming up, I imagine you're already starting work on it and you're identifying people as much as you can. So what happens now between now and that transfer window? Do you draw up your wish list? Do you chat to Gary and chat to Nick and make sure we've got enough money for you? What happens now? And you've got to manage the games as well. So it's a difficult process, isn't it?
As soon as one window finishes, the next one starts. So I shared a list with Gary start this week, which was looking at the positions we think, or positions we need, but also the players in those, whether it's loans, permanents, project players, free agents, and looking at which players, based on, again, all the information we've had over the last 5 years, we think would be available and will be suitable. And that work now of our scouts will be a bit more proactive in looking at those players and monitoring them. The coaching staff, the manager will look at those players a bit more intently, and we can start to narrow down those lists as we start to approach the summer.
And I imagine you're talking to players, extending contracts for those people you want to extend contracts for. That's happening now, is it?
Yeah, so all those talks at the moment are ongoing, and some of them are just starting, but yeah.
Give us a clue. How's it going?
Evening, everyone.
You say bring it on.
Yeah, it's going well. I think that the key for me since I've came to the club is how do we build a team for success in League One, and the only way we do that is over time. If we have to change the squad every window, every summer, every January, and there's that turnover of player, it's very difficult to create a team spirit. It's very difficult to develop a style of play. It's very difficult to develop connections within the team. And I think this summer what we did in terms of the turnover of players, the quality of players that we lost, it was a huge summer for the football club in terms of finances and what it could do to prepare and to plan ahead for the future. But it was also a big turnover of players and a big challenge for myself, for the coaching staff and for the players. I think we always seem to forget the players, that they're the ones that have to perform, they're the ones that have to develop relationships, they're the ones that have to settle in a new area. Apart from Ben, he's came back home, so he's delighted.
He's back in his old bedroom, he told me earlier.
So that is really challenging, but it's a challenge I think we've kind of took head on. We've obviously had a fantastic start to the season, a difficult middle, and we're going well at the minute, and we want to finish the season as strong as we can, but it's also about next season and the season after that, and how we can build a squad that can be together for a period of time. That's the way we're going to achieve success at this level.
So is it trying to get more permanent people in and rely less on loans? Is that sort of over the next couple of seasons the way you want to go?
Yeah, that would be good if we could develop a core of the squad that was together for 2-3 seasons. I think we always have to be good in the loan market, and we have to get the best loans available. I think we're a fantastic club for loan players because of the environment here at SJP, because of the facilities at the Cliff Hill training ground, because of the average age of the squad. It's a relatively young squad, so younger players can fit in very easily. And this season, I think our success with loans of Ryan Trevitt, of Veal, Dion, Luke, Admiral, we have shown that the best talent in the Premier League, we are a brilliant club for them to come, because we give them game time and we give them that support to help their development to go back to their parent club.
And that must help us going forward for next year. The clubs can see we do it right, so therefore they're happy for them to come to us?
Yeah, I think so, and we understand what development looks like from a player's point of view. We understand that young academy players who've came through this club for many years are going to make mistakes at times, and that needs support from the supporters, but also support from the staff and from the football club to help those players through those periods. And like I said, I think all our loans this year have been successes in different ways, and that can be good for the future, because we can sell the football club next season to get even more loans and good loans that can come in and help a nucleus and a core squad that's already here.
Okay. I'll just go to a couple of questions we've had in, if that's all right with you. So the first one is about Harry Lee. Can you explain what's happened to Harry this season with his loans? He goes out, he comes back, he goes out again, and has not really been seen in the main squad. If you are able to, what's going on with Harry?
Yeah, Harry's had some good loans, some successful loans, some not so good ones where he's came back to the club for different reasons, whether that's another goal he's came into the club he's at, or we've decided to pull him back on different occasions. But he's coming back to work with a fantastic goalie coach in Kevin Miller, and work with fantastic goalkeepers, Vale, Sean and Woodsy, where there's real competition. He sees what an experienced goalie does every day in Woodsy. He sees what top young goalkeepers do every day, and he can learn from them as well. So for me, Harry Lee's at a point in his career where he has to get games somewhere, and he's went back out on loan to Salisbury, but he also has to get that level of training and that demand that we put on our goalkeepers day in, day out, and he's getting that. But I think for Harry Lee now, it's important when he is on loan, he's the best goalkeeper wherever he goes, and he shows that week in, week out. And if he does that, then at some point he can come back into our team and compete for that number 1 jersey.
Okay. Another question. Will some friendlies be arranged to keep members of the squad who are not currently getting many minutes match fit?
Yes, that's already happening. We played Southampton 3-4 weeks ago here. Then we played Cardiff just last week, where a lot of players got match minutes. So it's important that we look after the whole squad. So the boys that are playing, very easy. They're playing, they're happy, they're getting their minutes, and their physical level doesn't drop. The other players have to train more to keep their physical levels high, and they also have to get match minutes as well. So we will look to do that, and that is the challenge when you have a bigger squad. It's making sure that every player, whether you're playing, not playing, or playing bits of games, that you are 100% ready physically and mentally to start games. And so far we've had far bigger training groups after games. That's created, for me, more competitive training and can only help drive the standards of the whole squad.
Because I know you're very keen that there's a competition for places, aren't there? What does that bring to the squad?
Well, it's the only thing that drives performance for me. I can shout all I want at the boys and make them go, but when you know you've got a good player in your position who wants that jersey as well, then that drives performance in a really healthy way, a really competitive way. But the spirit at the training ground is brilliant, but there's a real competitive edge to training now, which can only make every single individual player better and can drive the team forward.
Okay. Marcus, I know you're very keen on data, aren't you? And Gary, I know you're very keen on data. What one key thing, the data, what does that tell you about a player or the squad? What can you gain from that in terms of fitness or ability or drive? What do you gain from that?
Well, we use data in loads and loads of ways in terms of, so the stuff you're touching on there, the physical is our GPS data in terms of our high-speed running and accels, decels and distance covered. That's stuff that we can use to monitor the players' loads. In terms of what we do pre-match, post-match, we use data and stats to look at our team. They just tell you the facts, so you're not looking at opinion, you're looking at actually what's happened. And it's a similar story for recruitment. We use a lot of it in recruitment to help identify and point us in the direction for players. The numbers don't lie, the numbers tell you what's happening. They help guide you in a direction. We're doing lots of great work. We've just signed up with StatsBomb, who are a big data provider, which provides us with a lot more data we can trust and use across our league and other leagues for recruitment purposes, as well as looking at opposition and ourselves. And our friends down the road, ATAS, we're doing a bit of work with them to help on a recruitment point of view, in terms of we can look at other markets, as mentioned, and again, it helps us identify players that are doing what they're doing, what the numbers say they're doing.
And do the numbers tell you when the players are at their peak fitness? You know, in terms of when they're coming back from injury, you know they're ready. If they hit a certain marker, you know they're ready to go full whack and for 90 minutes.
Yeah, correct. All the boys will go through testing, physical testing. They'll have all their physical testing data available so that the sports science guys can use that as a benchmark for the lads that are coming back from injury. They know when they're back at what they were before they were injured. So, yeah.
Okay. Actually, talking injuries, Gary, are you able to give us an injury update of how that is, how people are coming back into the squad?
Yeah, this is far easier now than it was earlier in the season.
It's a shorter version of it now.
Ben was actually back the last couple of days. He's been training. Millie's been back training with the squad since last week, part training and in full training this week. Who else? Demi Mitchell's long-term, but has been kicking the ball, which is great to see, and doing a lot more running outside, which is great to see him. He's way ahead of schedule. He spoke to the specialist and he's got the all clear just to go now with Michael and the physios and push it as hard as he can to be back as quick as he can. Admiral Musque's been on the training pitch the last few days, part training with the group as well, which is good. And I think that is it.
That is brief.
Which is very short.
It's very good.
I missed anyone.
Will Demi be back this season, do you think?
I don't think so, no. I think his timescale was still going to take him way into kind of pre-season next season, but I think he should be fully fit for the start of pre-season next season. Okay.
What else? So next question. Gary, this is from somebody who sent it in. I think most of us fans can see the style of play you're after when you or your coaches sit in the stands and see it not going the way you want it to see. How do you get round that? How do you get that message out? How do you change that so you can get them going the way you want them to get going?
Tell the players to do it better. Sometimes helps.
That politely?
No, look, I think, look, everyone has a style of play. Everyone sees football in a different way. There's many ways to win a football game. I think what we've done recently, which is pleasing, is we're starting to win football games in different ways, where we maybe weren't the better team, but we've managed to control the game out of possession. But I think, right from my days as a player, I always played in teams who tried to dominate the ball, apart from my international team, where I spent many nights for 80 minutes, 90 minutes chasing a football and thinking this is really difficult. This isn't the way to play football and win, consistently. But my club's teams, I was fortunate, even when I played for Wigan in the Premier League, we were a team that dominated the ball. We were a team that, won an FA Cup because we had that ability to dominate the ball against Manchester City, Everton in that cup run. So I'm a big believer in dominating the ball. I don't want to see loads of passes across the back. I don't want to see slow football. I want to see fast, incisive, attacking football where we play forward, we run forward, but ultimately we control the ball more than the opposition. I think that gives us, the chance to be successful. Then when we lose the ball, how do we win it back? I want us to be really aggressive. I want us to win it back early, and I want us to, again, dominate out of possession. So that kind of style of play has many different facets within it and many different principles within how we do that, but ultimately I want us to be a possession-based team because I think long-term it gives us the best chance to win consistently.
So do you always have a plan B up your sleeve if the plan A for that particular team match isn't working?
Yeah, like I said, within that, how we then implement that all depends on the profile of the player. So how we set up in terms of, you know, are we building in a 3-2, are we building in a 4-2, are we building in a 3-1? That's based on the opposition, but also based on the profile of player. So Ben's a good example of, when Ben plays wing back, he doesn't play wing back the same as when Vinnie Harper plays wing back, because they both players have different attributes that suit different parts of the game. Ben has given us great tactical flexibility to come in the pitch and give the opposition problems when we build, to create a free player when we build, which allows us to pass through the lines far easier. But then when Vinnie Harper comes in the team, he gives us, sorry Ben, he gives us loads of speed. He gives us he gives us loads of speed, and that's not criticising Ben, that's not criticising Vinnie. Every player has different attributes. It's our job as a staff to get those players in areas of the pitch that show off their attributes in the best way, and that actually cover their weaknesses in the best way. So when we pick a team, depending on who we're playing against, depending on the players that we have, we can set up in different ways to win a game in different ways, but still with the overriding factor of, we want to dominate the ball, we want to dominate possession, and we want to dominate out of possession as well.
You talk about controlling the game without the ball. What does that actually mean? How does that work? How do you tell the players to do that?
So I think this season I've changed a lot in terms of how I see us winning the ball back. I've predominantly been, I was fortunate when I was at Wigan, I had a little ginger midfielder who could chase anyone and win the ball back off anyone.
He's around somewhere, isn't he?
And I went man to man. I was always someone in the middle of the pitch that I wanted to be man to man and really aggressive to win the ball back. I think in the difficult run we went on, I had to adapt and I had to find different ways how we could press and win the ball back in different ways. And I think since we've changed that to a more zonal structure and using the team and the block rather than the individual players to win the ball back, I think we've been much better since Boxing Day, really. When I think of the game here against Portsmouth, 4-4-2, really strong defensive block, no gaps between lines, players covering each other, players working extremely hard but winning the ball back in a different way. Against Wigan first half, I thought we were exceptional in how we controlled a very good possession-based team who built up in so many different structures, but because we understood out of possession, we controlled the game. Similar to what Derby did to us. As much as we had loads of possession on Tuesday night, Derby were in control of that game without the ball, and they knew that any mistake they could then counter-attack and cause us problems. So, like I said, we want to dominate the game, we want to dominate the ball, but I think since Boxing Day we've found ways, like at Wigan, where we don't need to dominate the ball, and we can find a way to win a football match with using our out-of-possession attributes as well.
Derby, the best team you've seen at SJP this season?
I thought Peterborough were an exceptional team. I thought we did extremely well to hang in that game and find a way to win that game as well. But for me, player for player, the way they set up, the way they control the game with possession, the way they play through the thirds, they create 1v1s in wide areas, I think they're an exceptional team. Bolton are an exceptional team. I think Derby are extremely strong, have a really powerful squad. So that, you know, it shows the level we're at. There is some top teams in this league, and it's brilliant for us to be competing against them, and brilliant for us to, obviously, we've picked up a great victory against Peterborough, and we'll hopefully try and pick up a few more against the teams up the top of the league.
Well, I know we will. I suppose this might be a question for Perks. The short corner versus the long corner argument. Oh, he's gone, has he? There he is. Sorry, David, didn't mean to drop you on it.
He's hiding now.
He's hiding. Oh, over to you then.
Perks does do the short corners, but all staff have obviously an input into it and kind of how we go about it. We aren't very good at attacking the corners. I think that has to be said first. When early season, we were actually okay at attacking the kind of direct ball into the box. Statistically, the best way to score is from a short corner. So that is something we looked at. We felt like when we have TC, Jack, Dion, Reece even, Trev when he was here, we have good footballers that we can draw teams out and try and create more space, which might give us more chance to score when we do put it in. We've scored from the edge of the box second phase. That is because we're drawing people out. So I think there's always going to be debates on, corners for, short corner, putting it in, defensively, zonal, man-to-man marking. Everyone will have their opinion. We haven't been great at attacking corners, so we have to find different solutions all the time. But for me, it's something that at times it has worked in terms of we invite more people to come out the box, so we create more space. And we have had opportunities from those. Even last week at Wigan, I think Reece Cole's shot, second half, that just went wide of the post. That was a short corner to create space at the edge of the box. So we're always looking, we're always trying to get better as a staff, we're always trying to improve and give the players better solutions to give us more options to score goals. But I could sense a bit of frustration one game here from the shot.
Is that a good enough answer, David? Talking of Reece Cole, he's been a bit of a find, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He's a player I signed on loan 5 years ago now when he was at Brentford, when I was at Partick Thistle, and he got me the sack after 2 games, so I don't know why I've kept in touch with him, but it's came back for me. He's someone that I think, look, I say to the players a lot, I said it today when we were analysing the Derby game, football's hard. And I think sometimes supporters, you come to the stadium, you want the players to do well, and there is a frustration at times, but what these guys do every single Saturday, Tuesday, it's exceptional. They go out, they put themselves out there in front of 8,000, it was 10,000 at Wigan, whatever it is, and you're putting yourself out there to be shot at, and it's difficult. It's not an easy game. There's highs and lows, there's mistakes made in the game. So, what they do every week is fantastic for me. But Reece was someone that, for different reasons, his career had kind of faltered and he'd struggled. I'd kept in touch with him and we brought him in pre-season, and he was exceptional from day one. He was fitter than I remember when he came up to Scotland. But his attitude, his quality, his dead ball, the way he strikes the ball, he has real top-level quality, and it's great to see him enjoying his football and doing so well at the club this season.
Talking of the bad times, the negative times, you hear the boos, you see the banners, all the chit-chat about stuff. How does that affect you as a manager, as a person, and the players as a player and as a person? Hearing all that negativity, how do you manage that? How do you get yourself through that? How do you get the squad through that and the back office staff through that? How does that affect you, and what do you do to turn that round?
I think I've been fortunate. I wasn't a great player, and I played for Celtic at right back. And when you're not a great player, and I was slow, very slow, and you're playing right back and 62,000 people boo you or question you when you give the ball away, there is no hiding place. And you have to develop resilience, you have to develop skills to cope with that, to come out the next game and do the same thing and do what the manager's asking you to do. So I think a career in football just lends itself to giving you those skills to cope with negativity. It's not nice, obviously. We're human beings at the end of the day, so we want the praise, we want the adulation, we want the big bank clapping at the end of a game, but it is what it is. It comes with the job. It's kind of part of it that I have to deal with. I'm fortunate I have really good staff who took the piss out of me really in that period, which was really nice of them. But we stick together in that period. The biggest thing for me in that period was the players, again, that we supported them and we made sure that they didn't lose belief, they didn't lose confidence. It was obviously went a bit rocky for a period of time, but the biggest thing for me is they have to see that we believe in them, they have to see that we believe in what we are doing, and we have to stick to the plan whilst also adapting and constantly trying to find more solutions to help them to be better, to win games. But it's part of football, it's part of life. When you have difficult moments, you have to find a way to get through it.
Okay, just 2 more questions and then to the floor. I haven't forgotten you, we will get to you. Question in the club procedure for home match days. How do the players get to the training to the match? Is it car share? Is it all meet up at Cliff Hill? What do pre-match meals consist of? I see we've got Chef Chenko here somewhere. He might be able to help us. And lastly, before the players leave, after the match, is there like a quick post-match review? What's the sort of the procedure for match day for the players and staff?
The players arrive about 1:15, half one for a 3 o'clock kick-off. They come in their own cars straight to the stadium. They have their own pre-match. When it's a home game, for away games, we're obviously in hotels. We normally have a meeting at, what time is it? 1:45, just before 1:45, in which time, 1:45, we have to put the team sheets in to the refs. And on match day, I try and leave the players. I think we've given them all the information at that point, and that's important that you let the players kind of focus on the game and do what they need to do to be ready for the game. There might be little kind of reminders of certain things, but more often than not, I think the main bit of work we've done during the week, and that's when we have to kind of get our point across and let the players on a match day, let them play the game. All the information's in, but you have to trust the players at that time to go and play the game. Then we have obviously half-time, we have a moment where we can debrief, where we'll maybe show them a couple of clips on the TV in the change room to give them the real detail of the game and what's needed for the second half. Post-game, we'll have a quick review. It's sometimes, I think at that point, everyone's obviously emotional, whether you win or lose. When you win, it's easy. Everyone's happy. When you lose, you have to be careful, what gets said at that time. Sometimes you might need to say things in that emotional state. Other times you might need to say little and then debrief when we get back to the training ground. But the players will then eat after the game. I think that's important as well, that they get that recovery. That starts straight away. They get protein shots and everything these days. There's so many nutritional things. They get some food, and then the preparation for the next game starts straight away.
Okay. And it would be very remiss of me not to mention Jack Fitzwater, seeing that video clip today about his battle against colitis. So I think all of us are very proud of how he came out and talked about that, and just shows you what the type of guy he is.
Yeah, I spoke to Jack this morning. When I seen it this morning, I thought it was incredible how brave he was to do it. But I think it sums up him as a person. I think all the players, I'm not just saying this, they are really, really good people, first and foremost. They care about their careers, they care about the football club, and I think Jack epitomised that today.
Yeah, so well done, Jack, and well done to the club for facilitating that. So I'm going to come into the floor now. You've got to put your hands up if you've got a question for Marcus, and then for Gary, and then we'll come to the boys here. So just make sure you do speak into the microphone, please.
Question for Gary. Goalkeepers. Do we need 4 goalkeepers? I think very few division clubs in our league would have 4. Do we need 4?
It's good to have 4. Obviously, Harry Lee's a young goalkeeper, a developmental goalkeeper who is currently on loan, so we only have 3 at the minute. Woodsy had an injury at one point this season when we brought Sean McDonald in, and he has been a fantastic character, like I said, a great person, and added to the group that we've got. So for me, it creates competition. Financially, we can do it. It's part of the budget, and it's not stretching the budget in any way. If it did, then I'd really look into it. But at the moment, I'm quite happy. Longer term, do we need to have 4? Probably not. But that will be something that we'll address in the summer, because obviously all 4 of them are out of contract. 1 goes back on loan, and the other 3 are out of contract in the summer.
This is a message or a question for Gary. Can I just ask, Gary, when you first came to the club, you took the captaincy of Piers Sweeney and gave it to Will Aimson. I just want to know what your thinking was behind that. And obviously then when Will was out of the team, Sweeney's got the captaincy. And just to see what the reasons behind it and what your thoughts were, really.
Yeah, at that time, I think Sweeney's will be the first to admit, and I have a fantastic relationship with all the players, but there's times I need to make decisions that they sometimes maybe don't like, or isn't for the best interest of them, it's for the best interest of the team. Sweens was having a tough time really, and I felt it was important he focus on his game. The captain when I first came was actually Matt J, was the club captain. He was wearing the armband and he wasn't in the team either. But when Sweens was playing, I felt like it'd be better when we brought Will in that somebody else take that responsibility. Sweens focus on his own game and his performance levels, which I think went up at the back end of last season. I don't think they've ever been higher than the current time now since he's been at the football club. And we also want to develop more leaders. So we want to give more people the opportunity to lead. Wearing an armband for me is something I've done at most clubs I played for. It's an honour, but it doesn't make you a leader. It's part of the game where you have to obviously do the coin toss and pick which way you want to play, but just because you've got the armband on doesn't make you a leader. So when we did that, Will was the team captain, Sweens was the club captain, and look, I know the kind of history of Sweens and how much he's loved here, but from within the group, there was so much positivity with that. The two players get on so well together. They were doing a lot together and actually spreading the kind of the responsibilities that come with being a captain, spreading it amongst each other. And then obviously, as you've seen just before Christmas, when we gave the armband to Reece, we felt like Will was having a difficult time and having a difficult time from the negativity with supporters. We felt like it was important he focus on his game. We felt like Reece was in a really good place and we want to develop his leadership. And I think Will had one of his best games for the club the other night as well. So it's something I think longer term we have to develop more leaders within the group. We have to develop more leaders within the academy. How we do that is by giving players more responsibility at different times, but also at other times taking that responsibility off them and allowing them to focus on their own game.
Anybody else would like to ask a question? Go on then.
Sorry, Gary. Different question altogether. You seem to have a running kind of thing with the fourth official on every game. And I just want to know, it seems to start from almost immediately until the 90 minutes. Is it really frustrating with the fourth official? Because you get involved with the opposing manager, the fourth official, and it's quite comical sometimes, but I know probably from your perspective, you know, there was if you get yellow card or whatever and then you're in the stands, it must be frustrating for you. Is it really frustrating with the fourth official?
Yeah, I normally last about 5 minutes. No, I'm okay for 5 minutes. It's really frustrating. I think they're a waste of time. I think they create more problems than they actually do good. They're there supposedly to help the referee. They never help the referee. I get a different answer off every fourth official. Last week at Wigan, for instance, Sean, my mate, is asking for yellow cards, which is fine. That's his, prerogative, and he gets 2 yellow cards, but you're not allowed to do that. And then when I ask, then there was an incident in the same game, and I said, "Is that not a yellow card?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Do you want me to show you the yellow card? Does that get it?" And then that creates more annoyance. So yeah, I think them being there creates more problems than them not being there. And if they are there, they're there to help the referee get the right decision, and more often than not, they don't. Could I be calmer? Possibly. I want to win the game, so when things go against us, I feel like I have to stand up for our football club. And too many times this year, things have went against us, because I think it's easy. It's easy to give 9 minutes against Exeter. It's easy to give decisions against Exeter. A penalty here that was ridiculous. It shouldn't be that easy, and I think as the manager of the club, I have to stand up for that.
Can I ask you what you think about this blue card idea, 10 minutes in the sin bin?
The blue card's bad, but the blue strip up the back is even worse. How did somebody get in this building with a Rangers strip on? I think the blue card's just a stupid idea, yeah. It's people who don't know much about football trying to influence it in a way that's going to take it in a bad direction, so yeah. And if there's blue cards, like Brendan Rodgers says, there needs to be green cards as well, and red cards, which there already is.
Okay, Unless there's anything else, let's move on to the two good-looking gentlemen. Well, hopefully you've learnt something new about your gaffer today. So welcome. Nice to have you here, boys. How are you settling in, Millie, to Exeter? First time you've been in this part of the world?
Yeah, first time being down here. It's quite windy near the beach.
Quite windy and wet.
Yeah, but it's very nice. I'm enjoying it.
So where do you call home? What's it?
Manchester Bolton.
You talk about it being wet here. So when you heard about Exeter, what did you think? What was the exciting opportunity for you to push on and develop your own career, or had you heard of Exeter before? I mean, what drew you to here?
Of course, I heard about Exeter before, but it was a big opportunity, and I saw where the club, where the club was going, and such a family club and a good club to come and play games and learn and develop. And I thought it was a big opportunity for me to come and be a better player.
Fantastic. And Ben, obviously coming back to hometown, must have been a big draw for you. Was it an easy decision for you?
Yeah, like I said before, it was one of those that I was trying to get back down south to England. This was sort of the perfect one in terms of League One football, again, which I've played predominantly in my career. It's home. All my family and everything. Grew up watching City at times when I was young, before I went down the road. But
did you have to
get out
mention
of the way? But yeah, like I said, I found some darts flights actually, the Exeter darts flights the other day from my granddad. That was quite interesting. So yeah, it shows my family are Exeter fans. It's perfect for me to come back. And the draw of League One football, the club doing quite well at the time. They've had a good start to the season, did well last season. Yeah, it was just a big draw for me to come back.
And is there much difference between playing in Scotland and playing here? Is it different level, better level, worse level? What the difference is? Ignore him.
That's a question. I don't think anyone can answer that question. The manager will say, I don't know what to say actually, but he's played for the top.
100 press-ups tomorrow.
Yeah, he's played for like a top club up there. I've obviously played for a club that's down the bottom of the league up there, so it was obviously tough for us when we come against teams that like Celtic and Rangers when you're sort of getting battered. But you can't really compare the leagues. There's only 12 teams in the league. I think you come across the same team 4 times throughout the season. It sort of becomes like a stalemate. Everyone knows each other inside out, and tactically it just sort of becomes first goal. I don't know about the stats, but it probably wins the game. It sort of just becomes quite boring. You're playing against players that you've played against all the time. Yeah, it's a completely different league, and I think League One football is a lot more exciting, and there's a lot more to play for in my eyes in terms of 4 going down and 3 going up. So, yeah.
So, Millie, you've settled in well to Exeter, do you think? You're happy to be here and you're getting to know the place and making friends amongst the squad?
Yeah, I'm settling very well, getting to know all the players, all the staff. I've not travelled too much in Exeter, I'm not seeing too much, but I've been close to the beach, it's really nice. But yeah,
you've been for a swim, of course, in the sea, haven't you?
I'm not a swim, I'm not a great swimmer. I know it's been really good settling in.
Good. Who in the dressing room now bosses the music? Who have you sort of gone in and done your own stuff, or who's doing that now?
Everyone kind of just takes turns, whether it's in the gym or in the changing rooms. If you fancy, just connect to the Hawks.
Yeah. Any arguments? Somebody put something on, you think, oh no, I've got to get out of the gym, or?
No, I think the quality's been very good.
Yeah. So what was that, Ben? And when I was speaking to Demi last, he said he was the snappiest dresser at the training ground. Is that still true, or you just sort of got to give him a run for your money?
I've seen a couple good outfits, and I've seen a couple that's not too great, but each to their own, really.
Or is there anybody else sort of snuck in there now and sort of stepped up?
Sorry?
Has anybody else snuck in and now become a snappy dresser?
It's all new to me, so I'm just kind of knowing who dresses like what, really.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And in the change room, I imagine there's a Finnish corner with the two Finnish lads. Is there an Irish corner now developing with you and Sweens?
We're reasonably close to each other, but I wouldn't say there's a corner, but yeah.
And when you get on the pitch, you must be really looking forward to making your debut here on the pitch. What do you think you can show the fans when you step out? There's no pressure, but what do you think you can show the fans when you step out on the turf?
I believe I can show the fans some powerful, skillful, direct, and exciting play. So hopefully, soon enough, I'll be able to showcase that for the fans.
Did you hear that? Yeah? You're starting Saturday, is he? Who are you sort of linking up with when you're on the training? Who do you think you're going to be linking up with and try and gain that understanding on the pitch?
Depending on what team I'm in, within the session, I feel like I'll tend to link up with some of the midfielders and just build a relationship.
So the man on your right?
Exactly.
Ben, same question to you, really. I know you've had a couple of matches. How are you feeling? How's the foot? How's the injury?
Yeah, it's come along quite well. It's towards the good end of the timescale that we got given. So, yeah, back in sort of training now. So it's one of them. Just looking forward to getting back involved.
Any particular aims for the rest of the season for you, besides obviously getting minutes? Anything you really want to try and achieve?
Just like anyone, play as many minutes as I can and win as many games as I can. The more I can contribute that way, the better.
Since you last played here, have you seen the changes that have gone on here? Have you felt there's a big difference in how we've stepped up?
Yeah, the last time I played here, without being at the club, was the change rooms on the opposite side. Very small, 2 little like electric showers in there, very tight. And then obviously that stand was the older stand. And then, to be honest, the pitch is probably better than what it was back then as well.
That's the right answer. They spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah, good. But yeah, obviously the big improvements, the training ground. I played there over the years from like 9 years old up to 16. That's actually, it's really, really good. And that was like a big part of, obviously, when you're coming into training every day, you come into a nice environment, a nice place to train, compared to what it was before. It's just it's a ridiculous difference. So I think that was probably a big attraction to people coming down as well. Millie probably showed the training ground there. I think it's really, really nice. So.
And is that important to a player to see that type of facility available to them?
Yeah, it's not the be and end all, sort of like you come in to sort of play and you're playing for a club, training ground. I've had good training grounds, I've had bad training grounds, but obviously you'd much rather be in a good training ground. You've got good food, you've got a good chef and everything. It's sort of all...
Don't say that. He's in the room as well.
You can't see him actually.
He's here somewhere.
It's all put together really nicely, so yeah.
Talking of the chef, he is here, his book is here, Cooking with Chef Chenko. All the proceeds from that does come back into the football club. That's the end of the commercial break. Anybody would like to ask any of these gents questions? Bear with me, sir.
Question for Ben. Ben, Dingwall is a long way north. Ross County is the most northerly professional football club on the island. You'll have met Jordan Tilson up there. He went straight there from Exeter, having played 100 games here, 100 games up there. You went up there from London, from, was it Cholton? What is it about Ross County that draws players to it?
It's a good question. Scottish Prem was probably a draw to play against the likes of Celtic and Rangers. It wasn't my intention when I left Charlton to ever end up in Scotland. It just sort of, football takes you to different places, and I think it was my 5th club at the time, so I've been about a little bit, but yeah, it was just, it came up, it was an attractive sort of thing for me at the time. Would I go back? I'm not sure. Bit cold up there, snows a lot. But yeah, no, it's just one of them. Obviously, Tilly always used to bang on about he was the longest transfer in the EFL or something. So yeah, I've matched it.
Anybody else would like to ask a question to any of the gents? Gary, would you like to ask a question to anything? Gents, would you like to ask the fans a question at all? Let's turn it around. Is there anything you would like to ask these people? Don't worry, there's nothing there, don't worry. Okay, we're going to ask the same question to Gary and Marcus. Is there a question that you would like to ask the fans? Well, okay. Anything on the social media at all, Ewan? Nothing at all, okay. So, unless there's nothing else, that's it for this part of the evening. Can I just say a big thank you to Gary, Marcus, Millie and Ben. I hope it wasn't too bad for you, Millie. No, you come back again. Good man. We'll have a break. It is, 8 minutes past. So we say we're back here at 25 past, and then for the Jeremy and Joe Roadshow. Thank you very much indeed.
That's what Ben wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Okay, folks. 1 minute, please. 1 minute, please. Can people in the bar, please? Right, 1 minute. Okay, I'd like to make a start now, please. We'd like to make a start. Right, you can take your seats, please. Okay, so we're going to move on to next part of the evening, which we've got Jeremy Tipper, CEO, Joe Gorman, CFO, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Executive Officer. They're going to talk through the business plan for the next 12 months. We've got a slide deck. We will be putting majority of these slides onto the Supporters Trust website. Might not get done tonight, but it will get done. So people who aren't present or have trouble seeing it on camera will get to see their presentation hopefully in the next 24, 48 hours. Again, they're going to run through for the next 2.5 hours, they're going to be running through this presentation. Oh, sorry, 20 minutes I misheard. For the next 20, 25 minutes, they'll go through their presentation, and again, they'll be taking questions at the end. Okay? So I've seen some of it. It is fascinating. It is exciting, as I said right at the beginning.
How much did you pay? A lot. That's cost a leap.
Well, John, it wasn't enough, actually. So over to you.
Thank you, Pete. And thank you to everyone that's hung around. It's quite unusual to put the support act on after the main event, so we're delighted that some of you have chosen to stay and hear how we're doing. So thank you very much indeed. So for those of you that were at the Trust AGM, you will have seen the, it's an oval on that screen, but the circle of kind of the 5 goals that we've set ourselves since I've been involved in the football club in September. And really it's about making sure everyone across the footprint of the football club is really aiming to do all of the same stuff. For the purposes of tonight, Joe and I are going to speak about the sort of triangle that we think about pretty much every single day that we're in the football club. So trying to ensure that we are always thoughtful about the long-term financial sustainability of the football club under the trust model. Secondly, that we're able to put as much resource as we can into high-performance football. And thirdly, that we're always cognizant of making the supporter experience one that we can be continuously proud of and that we're investing in as well. It's a real pleasure to have Joe working alongside me and the rest of the team at Exeter City. As you see, we dress the same pretty much every day. And good to see that Marcus has actually got the brief as well. I've noticed he was in a similar jumper. What it's meant having Joe here since the beginning of November is that I think we've become significantly more financially literate as a football club. That's not to criticise what's gone before us in any way, shape or form, but it's really important that we've got a really clear handle on the numbers and where the football is from a financial position, not just today, but to be able to look forward into our financial future with confidence. And so the work that we've been doing together in the course of the first few months, I think has laid some really great foundations for us to be able to put money into football, but also to be thoughtful about how we invest in the infrastructure of the club to make the supporter experience an ever-improving one. And hopefully we'll share a little bit of the colour on what we're doing in both of those facets over the course of the next 2.5 hours. So the first things first, the first thing that we were able to do is really quickly, and I take none of the credit, Joe was able to very quickly establish what our financial position was on arrival in November. We'd obviously got good financial information that we got as a result of all the people that have come before us and our relationship with our accountant, Bishop Fleming. But what we were able to do is put in front of both the finance and governance group of the trust and the club board a pretty clear visual of our budget for the coming season, as well as a reforecast of what we would like to be able to do this season. And actually that's a really important foundation on which to be able to make decisions. And having spent a couple of years as a non-exec at the board table, around the board table, what I think all of us were sort of slightly frustrated by is we were leaving it quite late in the season to be able to make sort of financial decisions around the wage bill for football and what we were able to invest in terms of capital expenditure projects. So bringing that a long way forward and giving visibility to the board in December has allowed us to do some things perhaps with more confidence and assurance than perhaps we've been able to do in the past. Second thing we've done is a lot of scenario planning. So a couple of things that we have to take into consideration. The big one is around whether a deal is struck between the Premier League and the EFL, which might result in further finances into EFL football clubs. We still don't know that, and it doesn't look like after today's chats but with the Culture, Media and Sport we're any closer to that. But we've got a budget based on what that deal might look like versus a base budget which doesn't include those that financial upside. And of course we've done scenario plans should we be playing football in the Championship or in League Two in the coming season. The third thing that we've been able to do is put together a pretty robust financial forecast, again based on that base budget that we described, that doesn't include any additional transfer fees, so we don't assume anything else is going to happen from a transfer income point of view, and some conservative growth that the leadership team are focused on in terms of building the trading performance of the football club. So that 3-year forecast we can share gives us positive cash reserves all the way through to the end of the 25-26 season. And again, that's really important because it allows us to make informed judgments and decisions in terms of what investments we can make, even on that base budget number. And then finally, and Joe will bring this to life in a minute, we've got much more granular detail on things like the performance of the football club in terms of match day analysis, and we do much more robust forecasting on gates and the income that we're able to generate from every match that is played at SJP.
Thank you. So I think just kind of quickly, I guess elaborating on what Jeremy's said, is around the kind of scenario, the initial budget and reforecast process kind of gives you almost like a canvas, and then we can kind of use the scenario plans to kind of, I call it like scaffolding. So even if we've got something that we want to do kind of 3 years' time, is what are the steps to get there? And that's what the kind of scenario plans kind of help with. So EFL deal allows us to do X, Y, and Z if it comes to fruition. If it doesn't, we've still got kind of a working canvas to go from. So I think the bit that I wanted to do just was kind of give you an update on kind of this year's performance. So at the moment we're kind of we've already broken last year's retail and merchandising revenue. So that's obviously tracking for a record year. We're improving non-match day income. So one of the things we did kind of really well before pre-COVID, kind of looking at historicals, was actually non-match day revenue. And we're sort of building back up to that now. So that's a real kind of growth area. Got 29 new commercial partners thanks to work from the commercial team. And that's kind of, I think at the Trust AGM, we talked around kind of shouting a bit more about our story and kind of actually trying to sell kind of the ethos in terms of commercial partners as well. So that kind of helps. That's one of the reasons why we're kind of increasing our commercial partners. Best ever season ticket sales and average attendance are slightly below 22-23, but kind of taking into account 22-23 was obviously first season in League One, and also our kind of run, actually when I joined, so up to Boxing Day. So, and the Carabao Cup run has obviously meant we're ahead of budget and ahead of the reforecast we actually did back in November, December. So I think we're 54 grand ahead in terms of a profit. Transfer income is ahead of budget. We've also got, obviously, Ethan Ampadu, Sam Nombe and Archie Collins payments over the next 3 seasons. So when, on the previous slide, when we talked about kind of positive cash balances from 25-26, we've got real clarity on our cash, and almost anything else is a kind of a bonus and a bump up on those cash balances. Josh Key Tribunal, which is still ongoing.
Marcus, any updates on that?
I get an update as well here.
Well, that's exactly that. It's still ongoing. It's had a few delays. There's a few changes at the PFCC in terms of chairman, so there's been delays in stuff coming back to us. But yeah, it's an ongoing process that I don't want to commit to when it will end, but we suspect it will end before the end of the season, but it's ongoing.
And that kind of just going on the Josh Key thing, this is all additional in our budget, so we've not actually budgeted for any additional Josh Key income in there. So again, good news for when we do get it, fingers crossed. And there's considerable additional income from add-ons. So add-ons are kind of people that have already obviously left the club in terms of academy sales and things. So come the end of the season, you kind of want to be a Leeds fan, getting promotion, and potentially a Peterborough fan as well. So there's a little bit of there as well, which is good. And then one of the things I wanted to kind of concentrate on was actually the match day analysis. So I'm going to hopefully flick. So we talked about, and again at the Trust AGM, I talked about kind of one of my kind of things. No. How does that work then? Sorry, technical. There we go. So one of the things I talked about at the Trust AGM was actually kind of getting down into the granular detail. And this is one of the things we've kind of started to develop is a match-by-match analysis. You'll notice this is Derby County, which obviously we played on Tuesday. I think one of the things with so Bishop Fleming used to do us a match day report, and one of the things with that is you're kind of waiting on the data, and you're also kind of doing it from a point of, they do a really good job, but they're not kind of involved in the kind of business, so it's a little bit as you would expect from a third party. So what we do is track kind of season ticket holders that attend, non-attending season ticket holders, total tickets, percentage of capacity, and then the really interesting bit is spend per head by stand. So prior to this, we used to have spend per head, but as a stadium as a whole. So what we've tried to do is actually allocate the kiosks to certain areas. So you'll see kind of Stansfield stand is always a good example. So you've got kind of specific kiosks over there, and it's quite contained. So you've got spend per head over there is £2.19 at the Derby game. Spend per head in the main stand, it was 50p a head. So we think there's arguments there around Kenneford, obviously take quite a lot of that spend per head there. So that again draws us, it's kind of drawing us into, okay, maybe there's a conversation we need to have there. There's another bit, you might have noticed the kind of hole in the wall on the path that gets, I don't know what the kiosk is called there actually, but the path that gets, yeah, it gets kind of backed up there. So we're kind of saying, okay, if we put another kiosk there, disperse the crowd, serve people quicker, we'll hopefully increase spend per head there as well. And then what we can kind of do is just break it down into each game. So we've got all that data now where we can actually make decisions, and kind of going on later in the slides, you'll see some of the decisions that are kind of being made around that. The other thing we do is you've seen the gate forecast tracker. So we track here is reforecast. The black line is basically what we've put in the reforecast, so how attendances move and where we think they'll be, obviously quite rough. The red is then the announced attendance. The yellow line is then away fans. And then the grey box here is non-attending season ticket holders. So you've got kind of peaks around probably the Tuesday games is normally where we see it, where obviously season tickets, you bought a season ticket and you can't attend for whatever reason. So that again then generates kind of conversations in a new ticketing system. Do we look at the ability to resell tickets and those kind of things? So again, all data kind of driving decisions. And then just a little bit on this, we obviously then go purely into the numbers, but I'm conscious that I love the numbers, but not everybody does. So that's kind of, I'm hoping that kind of gives you a flavour of what the kind of detail we go into and how that is kind of driving decisions. And I need to get better at PowerPoint.
So hopefully that gives you a sort of insight into the sort of financial information that we're now collecting and the importance of how that allows us to drive making good decisions, both as it relates to our investment in football and our investment in the stadium and hopefully doing things that help make the supporter experience even better. And so what I just thought it'd be useful to give you is a sort of viewpoint both on what that has meant we've been able to do in the short term, and what it allows us to think about in the medium and long term as well. So from a footballing perspective, starting with the short term on the red bar at the bottom, it gave the trust and the club board the confidence to be able to make a pretty significant investment in the January window, to give Marcus and Gary a considerable budget that allowed them to bring in the players that we have. The second thing we've got is real clarity on what the minimum playing budget will be next season based on League One football. So again, what that allows Gary and Marcus to do is think about the players that they would like to be in the playing squad next year that maybe are coming to the end of their contracts this season or a little bit further ahead, and be in a position with confidence and knowledge that what they've got to play with in the coming 12 months in terms of contracting players and renegotiations with those players. Joe, do you just want to say a bit about how we measure sort of 24-25 season numbers as well?
Yeah, so we kind of track almost like on a headroom basis. So we'll have when we say we've got positive cash balances out to 25-26, that means we've made assumptions around playing budget. And then what I do with Marcus is kind of track, okay, if we're going to sign another player, what does that mean for the remaining budget in terms of squad building and that kind of thing as well. So we'll have a number that we know we've put in the budget for 24-25. That could change based on scenario planning and that kind of thing. But we've got kind of, again, talk about kind of a canvas there where we know this is what we can do, and we've spent X amount of that, and we've got X to get the rest, to build the rest of the squad for Marcus. So Marcus has got real clarity on what he can do earlier.
Then if you think about sort of the medium term, Marcus mentioned that we've made some investments in sort of new tools that allow us, again, to have a sort of wider and deeper amount of data that allows us to make really informed decisions, both from a recruitment standpoint and from a analysis standpoint. As I'm sure you all know, today we're a Category 3 academy, and there's certainly an aspiration that we've stated and you've heard before about trying to get to Category 2 status. But what we absolutely want to do is make sure that we're the best possible Category 3 academy that we can be. So again, we've made already some investments in new talent that's come into the academy, probably most notably a fellow called Ian Parks, that until he joins us in April has been working for the FA for the last 7 years, has been effectively the coaching lead for the FA for the southwest of England, as well as futsal across the UK. So we're really delighted that Ian has chosen to join us, and this is all about making sure that we've got the resources in place that allow us to make that step from Cat 3 to Cat 2 when that moment comes, but building the resource and capability in the academy even from today. And then thirdly, as it relates to first team football, again, making sure that we've got the right infrastructure in place to make the team that we put out on a Saturday the best that it can be. So we've made an offer to a new head of strength and conditioning that I think will bring a lot of value from his experiences in professional sport. He's due to join us in April. I can't share with you who it is because he's still working in his current role. And then we're looking to make 2 more appointments, a PDP coach for our under-21s, and given the much wider role that Marcus now plays, an additional analyst into a recruitment role. And then looking further into the future, we are really also thinking about the long term of what football looks like at Exeter City. So I've mentioned the Cat 2 Academy aspiration, and we have a working group that is spending time on understanding what the critical path is to get us to Category 2. Probably the biggest element of that is we need to have a indoor facility. So that is something that we've got to find a solution to and continue to work on. But as you can see, the work is already going on in terms of making sure that we're ready to put that application in once we've worked out some of the missing parameters. Pitch upgrades. So today the SJP, Chaz and his team work incredibly hard to make sure that both the pitches at the training ground and at SJP are the best that they can be. We could be in a situation where we'd want to play more football at St James Park. So at the moment we don't have much opportunity to have academy football played at the ground, and we'd love the opportunity to do more of that, and that certainly would be a requirement, not necessarily at SJP, but to have a stadium facility that would allow for academy footballers to play under Premier League floodlight, a pitch that has Premier League floodlight capability or standards, and also we have to also think about the potential future of women's football for the football club, and if we were to move from Tier 4 to Tier 3, which the majority of clubs in Tier 3 are semi-professional, what does that mean in terms of where that team plays? Obviously Exwick has been a brilliant home for us, but does it continue to be the home, or do we end up playing more games at SJP over time? And then also further upgrades to the Cliff Hill infrastructure. I think everybody can be enormously proud of the new facility, or relatively new facility, that we have at the training ground, and it was great to hear Ben mention that as kind of a factor in his choice to come and return to Devon. But there are other things that we'd like to do to continue to improve the infrastructure at Cliff Hill as well. This is probably as much for Marcus to speak to as me, but over my relatively short time here at the football club and engaging with supporters, one of the things that comes up quite often is around academy football, and maybe we haven't got quite as many academy players on the pitch as used to be true in the halcyon days of our promotion season. But I just wanted to kind of reassure everybody that we think about academy football still as very much as part of the fabric of what makes Exeter City so special. And this is actually Marcus's data, but it shows you the amount of academy minutes that have been spent in first team football over the course of this season already. Worth noting that we have a pretty significant number of under 21 players out on loan or injured at the moment. And also one other thing that's really worthy of remembering is we've got super talented players that have come through the academy, like Jay, Ben and Alfie, that have left us relatively early and are now in Premier League academies. So it's worth noting that they probably would have played a significant part in first team football had they still been here. But I think it's proof that the academy model is still working very much for us, and that we're still producing great talent that goes on to play across the leagues. Every year we undertake a supporters survey. We did that this year with over 900 responses, which was fantastic. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that the voice of everybody that chooses to participate in that is really heard. There are a whole bunch of things which I won't go through item by item that people picked out that they would like us to try and improve. There are a few things that are maybe just worthy of note and discussion. So one of the things that we're trying to do as part of a potential change in ticketing system is ensure that we can allow people to have a payment plan, put a payment plan in place rather than having to pay for your season up front at the beginning of the season. There's quite a lot of debate that's gone on over the course of the year around safety in the stadium and stewarding. It was really great to see over 90% of supporters that responded to the survey thought that we did a pretty good job of stewarding, and that they were happy with how their experience in the stadium. There are, I think, some frustrations in the Big Bank, and it's just worth saying that whilst perhaps we've been in a position where stewards have been more direct, let's say, about asking people to keep the gangways clear, that's actually been of benefit to the football club, because we now have our capacity in the Big Bank up by a further 250 people as a result of doing a really good job of keeping those gangways clear. So I appreciate that may cause some angst and frustration, but it's actually to the benefit of everyone that we're able to do that. The big one, though, which is a challenge for us, is given the footprint of the stadium is queuing and food and beverage. and being able to get more beer, pasties and other things out to supporters both before the game, half-time and afterwards. And hopefully what I'll share with you now is it's not a problem that we're ignoring, but trying to solve. So there are investments that have gone into the stadium already over the course of the first part of the season. So as a result we have a fantastic Disabled Supporters Association run by Andrew Barge. We take on board the feedback that we're given from our supporters very seriously. And one of the things that we've done already this season is put an accessible toilet in the away end, because if you were a wheelchair-bound away supporter, you were having to go round to the far end of the Stano stand. So that's something that we've managed to put in place. And then, as Joe mentioned, we've got a new kiosk opening in the corner of the Nevada stand and the Big Bank that should be ready for the Burton game, which hopefully will alleviate some of the queues. So this is where that triangle comes back together, which is, we can tell from Joe's data that actually we're not necessarily selling or serving as much food and beverage in that part of the ground as we are over in the Stano. We're also getting feedback from the Big Bank that the queues are often very challenging at half-time, so hopefully that's one step to alleviate that problem. And another one coming towards the beginning of next season in the stadium way end of the Big Bank as well. So we are trying to add additional capacity within the constraints of the footprint of the stadium. And then, I guess, just as we shared that perspective of sort of short, medium and long term from a footballing perspective, the same is true from a supporter experience and physical infrastructure point of view. So I mentioned the fact that we've been able to increase the capacity both in the Big Bank and the away end, those in-season improvements in the stadium. There's also quite a lot of work going on at Cliff Hill. It's not a brilliant experience if you're a parent watching an academy footballer on the 3G. And so we're putting new facilities in, new toilet facilities and a kiosk into the training grounds, and those are going in as we speak. From a medium-term point of view, and again, working closely with Clive and the Supporter Experience Committee, thinking about other things that we can do to make match day a better experience, but also potentially generate more income for the football club, which again, we can put into new capital expenditure projects or the playing squad. So the fan zone is a project that's been on the club's mind for a while, and subject to the right planning approvals, the idea is that we'll put a cover or an awning into the fan zone. Again, thanks to the support of the Supporters Trust in terms of providing the capital that will allow us to do that and put better and more significant food and beverage options into that area. Not a bit of a dull subject, but one of the things that happens at the end of this season is all of our streaming, our website and our YouTube channel is effectively run by way of a contract with EFL, EFL Digital, so we pay a fee to the EFL each year for the provision of those services, and they provide those collectively to a number of EFL clubs. That is sunsetted at the end of this year, so we have the opportunity to choose to rejoin the collective or do something different. We're in the throes of that decision right now, but what you should expect next year is a better sort of digital experience. So we'll have an Exeter City app and hopefully an improved ability to share digital tickets and make the ticketing experience better than it is today. So quite a lot of work going on to try and make the digital experience for supporters better, and also get our message out to a wider range of people with more content and more interesting stuff that we're able to share. And then finally, as Joe mentioned, we've done we had a great year from a retail and merchandising point of view. There's still some frustrations, which the shop gets very busy on match day. If you're a wheelchair-bound supporter, it's actually quite difficult to get into the shop. So again, we're making improvements that will give us a bit more footprint in the shop and make it more accessible and that work will be done in the summer. And then in the longer term, we got lots of feedback from supporters in the survey about the centre spot bar being, effect race being fantastic. Big shout out to the guys, thank you. It's where I choose to have my beer. And, but it's sort of not necessarily an environment that would encourage you to stay for a long time. And so is there an opportunity to revamp that and make it a bit more of an attractive place to stay, spend time, but also one which we can use on non-match days to generate revenue for the football club. We're always looking at ways in which we can increase the capacity of the stadium, and there are a number of proposals that we've shared with a supporter experience committee about how we could go about doing that. And finally, we actually are completely full from a hospitality standpoint pretty much every match day. And whilst I appreciate that might not impact every supporter, the income that it generates does. And so if we can create more capacity in our hospitality areas, because there are many businesses that would like to participate in that, then it's something that we are also thinking about in terms of how do we make more of that. A few other things that we've been working on just to finish up with. You will have seen quite a lot of activity on social media, and hopefully experienced it on the weekend in terms of the Green Football Weekend. I'm going to just introduce you to Travis, who's joined the club in October as our sustainability officer. I should just say that Travis is here on a part-time basis. He's also doing a master's in global sustainability at the university and is a professional cyclist. So he's doing a lot. But I think what we've been able to do in terms of improving the club's position in terms of our carbon footprint, reducing our carbon footprint, and being much more thoughtful about our environmental credentials is a lot down to him. So do you want a couple of minutes?
Sure, yeah. Yeah. So, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Travis. Yeah, I guess my role is largely, well, to begin with, it was to help us try and climb up the what's called the EFL Green Clubs framework. Only 2 clubs are currently accredited on that, and that's the obvious one, Forest Green and Bristol City. And we would like to be among those clubs very soon. But what that really means in practice is we split it up into various different categories and then look at how we can minimize our impact in each of those categories, basically. And I'm very aware that there's a lot of really great stuff being done that massively predates me, like just take a look at the Cancer City campaign that's been going on for years now. Things like that really show that it's already in the club's DNA. So what I'm doing is kind of building on it and solidifying the things that are already here. I'd like to emphasize that this drive towards environmental sustainability isn't going to take away from all the hard work that's being done on the pitch and behind the scenes at all. And if anything, hopefully it'll enhance it. And I think as well as being the right thing to do morally, and a lot of clubs are kind of announcing things like this and getting more active in this space, I think that we acknowledge there are commercial opportunities with regards to environmental sustainability, but also co-benefits that will hopefully improve the spectator and fan experience here at the stadium, as well as kind of saving the club finance as well in the long term. So there's really it's a multifaceted approach, and it's not just about kind of really driving down the carbon emissions, even though that is what we ultimately want to do and need to do, really, as is every club. And as I said, I'm pretty new to the role, but it's been great. I recognise several faces in the room, so it's been brilliant to meet you all. And thanks for everyone for kind of your buy-in, your support in this kind of stuff so far. And if you've got any questions, suggestions, or concerns, perhaps, I'm all ears. So thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Trav. Just to call out a few other things before we finish. Richard Knight does an incredible job as our SLO and has been the driving force behind the Family Excellence Awards for a number of years. Pleased to say that after our first visit of 2, that we're at 9 out of 10. The key recommendation that came out of that, amongst several, was around making sure that we have a designated family standing area. So that's something that we're committed to achieving. We're working on next year's away shirt and third shirt, which will be released over the course of the summer. Again, the trust members will have the opportunity to vote for the third shirt of their choice, and that's the one we'll end up playing in next season. There was quite a lot of feedback on last year's supporter survey about the retail proposition not being quite where it needed to be, so I hope everybody's seen a significant improvement in that, and you have a pretty full range of stuff available both online and in the shop. Worth also saying that, I think I mentioned in my first fans forum that we were quite late contracting with ProDirect, and so that was probably meant that the stock levels were quite where we wanted them to be at the beginning of the season, but I think we've alleviated that challenge and have also got on the front foot in terms of timing for next season, so we shouldn't see the same challenge again. We've had quite a lot going on in the course of the last few days as it relates to the game at Bristol Rovers, where we were trying to do the right thing as a club and help Bristol Rovers out. They've built a new stand, the South Stand, and in order to get the sort of safety certifications, that you have to go through various test events, one of which is to have a 75% full stand. They weren't there 24 hours before the Exeter City game was due to take place, so we gave them permission when they asked for it to sell tickets cheaply to get to that 75% threshold. Subsequently, they then chose to offer refunds to the home fans that had paid full price, the difference between 26 and 10 quid, but weren't willing to do the same for the Exeter City fans that were sitting in that stand. We're still in consultation with both the EFL and Bristol Rovers on that topic. We thought it was just the right thing to do for a club of our stature to make sure that we credited the accounts of all those people that were affected now. And if we happen to get the money back from Bristol Rovers, which we'll try hard to do, that's great, but we didn't want you, as our supporters, having to wait for that to happen. So we've sorted that out over the course of the last 24 hours. Spent quite a lot of time in working with the press that are here week in, week out to improve their experience, because it's been a little bit challenging for them to be quite as close as they are to the seated away support, so we're working on that in the summer. Joe's got quite a big project to work on at the moment in terms of the supporter report.
Yeah, so just kind of developing on the supporter report that some of you would have seen last year. So the aim there is to release it with the accounts, because I'm fully aware Exeter accounts aren't that riveting reading. So we're looking at just trying to coincide the two so that you've got kind of a bit more visibility of what, rather than just the annual accounts. So and that should be, kind of works nicely with the last point in terms of Club Trust Board and AGM on the 14th of March. So then that's when the accounts will be approved.
That's it? So yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. I think that was very informative. A lot of... a lot of work going on. Can we deliver this work? Is Justin going to get any sleep? How is it all going to be managed and project managed, and how's it going to actually happen?
Yeah, I think we are trying to do a lot at the same time, and you know, there's only so much fuel in the tank. That's probably not a very good analogy, is it? Only so much battery power from the solar panels. But you know, I think we're building a really capable, competent, effective, engaged, enthusiastic team who I think are rising to the challenge. I think, you know, in Gary's pre-Derby interview, he talks about the phrase as sort of better never stops as it relates to the players and how we think about football. I think that should be true of the club as a whole. And so, you know, I guess, you know, part of the role that I play is to try and raise standards across the club and ask a little bit more of people. But yeah, we're asking a lot, and there is only so much capacity. As I may have mentioned once or twice before, when anybody's asked me, it's really complicated running a football club. There are so many decisions that you have to make, not always with all the information at hand, but be assured that we're working really hard to do the best job we can.
I'm guessing now, I mean, I think that Derby figure you showed, you've got that almost straight away, haven't you? As soon as the final whistle goes, you almost get that information.
Yeah.
And compared to 18 months, 2 years ago, and this is no criticism, but you've now got some real-time information, haven't you, which will help in this decision-making.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also kind of alluding to Jeremy's better never stops kind of mantra, we're also, one of the things we're looking at in terms of EPOS till systems is actually getting that information real-time. So like time-stamped. So what's the spend pre-game? What's the spend during game? What's the spend after game? So again, it's great we've got that now, but actually we could get a lot more if we've got the right kind of software and that kind of in the club.
I'm guessing then every month when you go to club board, you've really got some solid information to work on and make your decisions on.
Yeah, exactly. That's the complete point. And I think Mark has kind of alluded to in terms of the data. It's exactly, we're very data driven anyway. So I think it gives you a good kind of grounding in terms of where to make decisions from. Okay.
Very interesting point you made that you saw how many season tickets were non-attendees. And this, like, just to go back, just to remind people, City for All. This is the scheme where if you can't attend a match, let the club know, and the club then can redistribute it to people who maybe can't afford to come to a match. And since August this season, we have distributed 491 tickets to people who couldn't come to a match otherwise. And that was off the back of a supporters initiative about 10 months ago, was it, Nick? So we're really proud of that. So well done to people who do return the ticket, because you are making a difference to people who couldn't attend. So please remember that. If you can't make it, get the ticket back to us and then we can reuse it. Grecian Max, I hope that answer was long enough for you. It's an in-joke, he'll understand. We haven't mentioned ticket pricing, probably don't want to mention it, a bit sensitive, but I imagine you're starting to look at 24-25 season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yes, we've been contemplating and being thoughtful about season ticket prices for next season. I think the first conversation started in November, so we'll get to an informed judgment by the time early bird tickets go on, or season tickets go on sale in April. I think what I would say is we're really cognizant of affordability, and that there's inflationary pressures everywhere in everybody's houses. So we'll do our very best to keep any increases to a minimum this season if we possibly can.
Okay. Any questions from the floor?
Sorry, just one other thing, Pete. Is worth saying that obviously that decision is made again alongside the trust in terms of the recommendation around season tickets.
Okay. Questions from the floor? So gentlemen's hands up and I'll come to you.
This will be a really quick question and hopefully a quick answer. As a season ticket holder in the main stand, can I ask what is going on with the PA system? Sorry, the PA system sometimes doesn't work in the main stand. So the guy's speaking and all of a sudden it goes quiet and the rest of the stadium can hear it, and it comes back, then it goes again. And surely from a safety perspective, that can't be good, because obviously people in the main stand can't hear it.
My apologies, it's not something I was aware of, probably should be, but I didn't know about it, so I'll pick it up with Justin on the next working day.
Can I just, that's been reported to Justin after the Derby game. I know it was, but that was the first time that I'd experienced it. So it's gone straight to Justin. He is working on it. It might not be the PA system. It might be the person speaking into the...
It's been going on for 20 or 30 years. Seriously.
Not this particular problem, because we've upgraded the sound systems.
So it's the same thing, the intermittent announcements that's been going on for as long as I've been up.
Two questions, Jeremy. First, me as a programme seller, you mentioned about programmes on that, but didn't mention anything in your talking about it.
Yeah.
And you talk about digital.
Yeah.
I hope you're not looking at going like some clubs not having a programme. Reading, for instance.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, particularly, I mean, working as a programme seller, you talk to away fans a lot of the time, and they talk about alcohol sales behind in their end. Are you losing a lot of money because of that? And is it going to get better that we won't lose that money?
Yeah, so, I mean, programmes basically wash their face at the moment. It's a funny one, actually. My son loves a programme. So there's an element of, you kind of get it from the supportive view as well in terms of the programmes, but in terms of a financial point of view, is they do wash their face, but it would be something we're looking at. I don't think we're looking at kind of removing physical programmes, probably more just enhancing the digital offering.
Yeah, two other things to say is, one is we've obviously introduced contactless rather than people having to pay with pounds and pence. And we're hoping that that might help improve the number of programmes that we sell. Completely take your point about the away end, and we'll see if we can find a way of improving that.
So, just a quick question. Trust-run club, no rich benefactor. Obviously, we are very overly reliant, as we have been, on transfer income forever, but particularly the last 20 years. You've given a lovely presentation there, which the next 2 years, the garden is very rosy indeed. How reliant are we, though, still, in terms of transfer income? Because as heartwarming as it is to say record year in the club shop, they're not going to deliver £1 million worth of growth, are they? Let's be honest about it.
So I don't think there's any getting away from the fact the academy is one of our biggest kind of revenue generators. I don't see why that needs to change. And also, I think on the slide deck there was kind of Ben Cresceni, Jay Stansfield. There's still kind of seeds in and around the football world that if something were to happen to them, we benefit from as well. So I don't think after 2 years transfer revenue disappears. I view it as an opportunity actually to grow commercially. So where we're talking about selling the ethos and the commercial partners, there's a real opportunity here to take advantage of the fact that we've got cash reserves and actually make the most of that point in terms of selling the commercial bit. But I also don't think there's other things going on in terms of EFL deal which help, but naturally EFL deal means clubs will spend more on wages, which means to be competitive our wage bill will go up. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts, but there's no kind of there's no getting away from the fact that the academy is one of our biggest revenue generators, and I think it will continue to be that, hence the Category 2 conversations. So we don't want to be losing kind of players to other academies and that kind of thing. And if we're kind of scaffolding Category 3 as well to get to that Category 2, so we're keeping that kind of revenue generation part of the business as well. But there's also no reason why we can't close the gap so we're not reliant on so much transfer income, if that kind of, hopefully that answers your question.
Let me just pick up the closing the gap bit as well, which is, sorry Pete, just for a fullness of answer. So I think Joe's absolutely right. The academy, we see no reason, if we continue to invest it in the way that hopefully we've described, can't continue to be a really important part of the club, both in terms of the team that we put out every Saturday, but also what it means in terms of windfalls for the club in the future. But please be absolutely certain that the other thing that we're working really hard on is driving other revenue streams for the football club, but not in a way that it in any way compromises the trust ownership model or the club that we are. So everything has to be done in a way that is, talks to the uniqueness of our club and how special it is. But I think there are loads of ways in which we can drive more revenue that doesn't come from the academy, so we become less reliant on it. But I think Joe's absolutely right. We're trying to make sure that we're continuing to invest in the academy so that it does continue to produce the talent that it has done in the past.
I think it's a really good story to sell as well. kind of, you look at other clubs in terms of we get kind of benchmarking reports where you see owner funding, and naturally we're right at the bottom of that, but that's kind of, sure, there's a bit of, we're kind of the utopia of what a football club should be. So shout about it, sell it, commercial partners, get commercial partners to embrace it. And there's loads of businesses that are quite similar to us in terms of employee ownership trusts. So let's engage with those. And that's kind of what we're kind of trying to do.
I think you've answered what's going to be my second question, which was that the Premier League, if there is a deal, is not really probably going to give any club anything particularly, because it'll just bump costs up anyway. So it's hard to see, and depending on how that deal is structured, it'll be hard to see how that's actually going to help us over any other club. That's my first one.
Yeah, so there's an element of if the deal were to happen, is the SCMP calculation, so how much of that can be spent on wages. There's talk around an adjustment in that as well, so it can't all go on that.
Right.
But again, it's just proposals at the moment, so it's quite hard to just kind of put a nail in and say,
exactly.
yes, not everything will go on wages, because at the moment the deal's not there to kind of view.
Okay.
But you would like to think the point of the deal is to create more sustainability within football clubs. But again, that's probably, I don't know what the word is, pie in the sky stuff. Utopia,
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
My second question is sort of quite a simple one, really. The indoor pitch that we would need to go to Cat 2, would that have to be at the Cat and Fiddle, or could it be somewhere else in the town?
It can be, I think I'm right in saying it can be anywhere, but I think the academy need access to it, don't they? I think. Yeah.
It's certainly within a geographical radius of the football club that it has to be, but it doesn't have to be at the Cat and Fiddle.
Thank you. That question was getting into what I was going to ask. I know it's your aim, the club's aim, to get the academy to Category 2, but I think at the Trust AGM it was mentioned that Plymouth and one of the Bristol clubs are how close to Category 2 ahead of us are they in that move, and is that, how much of a threat do you see that?
Nick, do you know the dates of when I think they're both applying this August, is that right?
It takes 2 years, so you apply, and then you become a Cat 2 2 years later. Marcus nods his head. Yeah. A bit more convincingly.
But do you think that they're ahead of us in that? They are, yeah.
They are ahead of us, for sure.
Any more questions? Anything on social? Nothing? Okay. Final call. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to Joe and Jeremy. Like I said earlier, the slide deck will be on Supporters Trust website a little bit later this week, I hope. I hope you've enjoyed it, very informative, and we'll be doing another Fans Forum soon. Thank you very much indeed.